Welcome back to another edition of the Unofficial Guide Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. I'm Len Testa, your host, and today Jim and I are going to be finishing up our conversation on the history of Christmas at Disney theme parks. As you can recall, the last episode we ended up with just after Walt had passed away in the mid-'60s, and the company was sort of trying to figure out what to do for Christmas at Disneyland and Walt Disney World. The company was trying to figure out what to do at a Disney theme park when there was no Walt Disney for Christmas. So to tell the rest of the story is Jim Hill. Welcome back, Jim.
Hi, Len.
How's it going?
It's going well, and season's greetings to all of you out there. The interesting thing about when talking about the holidays at the Disney theme parks, you have to understand that they kind of run in parallel to what's going on in pop culture. That when Walt passed away in '66 or thereabouts. Look, there were holiday specials. I mean, what is it? 64 was the first year Rudolph was shown. 65 was Charlie Brown Christmas. At 66 was Grinch. So it was, but still, Christmas at that point was still sort of assigned to the week 10 days around Christmas. And what ended up happening was that that what Disney did at the park sort of reflected that. You had, Walt Disney World opens in '71, and sure enough, the first year they have candlelight right, at the Magic Kingdom at that point.
Really? Where'd they hold it?
Well, you got to remember that they've always followed the Disneyland template. So it's like, okay, so they have it on their trains. They have it on a train station. We have it on our train station. And in fact, candlelight stuck at the Magic Kingdom for up until '94, when then they decided to move it over to Epcot because they were in the process of, to be honest, creating artificial reasons to drive people over to Epcot at night.
Sure. All right.
So you put it in
71. So back in '71.
Yeah. Yep, '71, right there in the kingdom. But that just, in fact, if you talk to California locals or Orlando locals, they used to love going to Walt Disney World or Disneyland during this period, because from November to roughly 2 or 3 days before Christmas, the place was deserted, and you had. You had these wonderful decorations you could enjoy in basically an empty park.
Those were the days.
They were, but that was the thing from Disney's point of view. That was something that needed to change. Now, mind you, if you talk with old Walt Disney World employees during this period, this is when they loved working for the company, because mostly everyone who worked for the company at that point, they were full-timers. Mm-hmm. And because there were so few people coming to the parks.
Did they have pensions and company cars, Jim? Full-time employees at Disney?
In this case, they had wonderful cast member-only parties.
Really?
Where you brought the family, and that you had the semi-private time in the park where the managers were running the attractions. And the nice thing is that when you walked out the gate, in fact, if you want some really cool Disney collectibles, go on eBay and Google. I think the words you're looking for are cast member Christmas party, and there are some amazing picture frames that they are dimensional. There are Christmas ornaments. I mean, some wonderful stuff that Disney gave to the employees during the period where, hey, thank you. You've worked so hard all year. We really appreciate you. That sort of thing.
Wow.
And then Eisner walked in the door, and that quickly went away.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing I'm trying to figure out. So if Disney is waiting till like the last 10 days before Christmas, or the 2 weeks before Christmas, to actually start gearing up for the holidays, how do they fit in the 21 Mickey's Very Merry Christmas parties into 14 days? Are they running them concurrently? That's
the other thing that's really cool about it. The very first Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party is 1983, and it's only 2 nights.
Oh, this is so just before. When did Eisner get there? 84?
84. And
so Christmas Party predates Eisner. Huh.
Yeah, but
2
only
nights.
by a hair. And in fact,
adorable.
What's interesting is your first holiday overlay actually predates Eisner by a hair as well, the Country Bear Christmas show. This was something that, again, just they opened the show, Country Bear Jamboree in '71, and they found after a while, just people who'd been to Walt Disney World, particularly during the age of ticket books,
Hmm.
it's like, I did that show and it was cute, but I got to go do something else. And so this was a way during a time when attendance was down anyway to artificially drive people into the Country Bear Show. So, and that it's what's interesting is I know that there was the second show in '88,
Hmm.
the Vacation on, but as it turns out, there were two other shows that they had written and storyboarded that never made it out. They had a Valentine's Day show and a Halloween show, and
Wow.
there was a tentative plan even for a Fourth of July. So yeah, that they went from they had a very ambitious plan at one point that again in the classic Disney sense fell by the wayside. But
Huh.
um,
I think a Halloween Country Bear Jamboree is actually sort of intriguing. Valentine's Day, it's a minor holiday.
well, just in fact, somebody showed me the concept art for that. And what they did, it was one of these things where the entire show was built around the concept that when Teddy Bear got lowered, she'd have, she'd have a bow and arrow in her hand, and she would be the Cupid of the show, and
Ah, got it, got it, got it. Okay.
that one got kind of tripped up by the fact that you understand she comes down out of a tube, right? That she just fits. All right,
Yeah.
and now you're talking about, oh, let's put wings on her, let's put an arrow. It's like, yeah, no, this
Oh,
isn't happening, guys.
Uh,
So,
the wings, spring-loaded wings on a mechanical bear. That's not gonna work.
yeah,
All right,
so
so '83 is the first Very Merry Christmas Party. It's 2 nights. I can't believe it.
and
Um,
it stays 2 nights until 1990 when then they make the big jump and go to three. You know,
ooh, oh hey, 50% increase, man. I'm just
you
saying.
know, and from there, just again as you get into the early '90s and you begin to see the calendar, I mean, you get to see the modern Disney company happen
All right, so this
before
is
your
Eisner,
eyes.
right? So Eisner comes in
Yep.
'84. His
Yep.
first priority is probably not bumping out the Christmas season, but my sense is it's probably up there though after he gets through like the let's not get taken over or let's build out our hotels, right? So walk us
hmm
through that.
Well, the other thing to remember is that Eisner was famous, for the first 10 years that he was in charge. Disney achieved 20% growth every year, which was astounding to the business community. But
Could you
at the
imagine that now? 20%
well,
growth every.
but first of all, now let's remember that when Eisner came on board, out of the 11 companies in Hollywood that were making movies, Disney was 11th. All right, so there literally was nowhere to go but up.
All right, okay. All right, fair
And
enough.
and then a lot of it was artificial. Like, hey, people want hotel rooms on property, build them. So Caribbean Beach, the Grand Floridian,
Yeah.
people want to stay an extra day on property, build the studio. I mean, there were all these ways to artificially bump it out. But again, the problem of when you go 20%, 20%, 20% for 10 years in a row, that is hard to maintain. So now you get into this era where Disney is literally lifting up the couch cushions. It's
Yeah.
just like, all right, you know, Eisner wants 20% growth. How are we going to do that? And in a weird sort of way, it was the very first marathon that sort of it was the notion of we created this event in January where all these people showed up. It's like, holy crap, you know, could we do
What
that? I mean,
other events could we create?
there we go. And
People
so
are going
now,
through like Scandinavian calendars looking for obscure holidays they can appropriate. Yeah.
but at the same time, if you look what's going on at Epcot, the biggest park that's the hardest to fill, you get Food and Wine, you get get Flower and
Flower
Garden,
Garden. Yeah.
and in fact, what became of the Discovery thing that was supposed to happen this January there? Did you remember hearing about that? The sort of science, that the whole they were going to have a future World Fest. They did surveys, they tested the names, they reached out to sponsors, and
No, I
that
didn't hear anything about it.
kind of evaporated. Nobody's, that's the thing. It was all this talk earlier in the year about it, and
Hmm.
nothing since.
Maybe
So
we got maybe we got limited time magic instead. I mean, that's fair.
okay, but again, so now you're looking at a company that aggressively is looking for ways to bump out the calendar. So you get What's weird is that Christmas starts off by doing, 3, 4, 5 days going, marching into the 90s, and it's kind of because Mickey's Not So Scary always lags behind until the mid 2000s when it actually shoots past, Christmas.
Yeah.
In fact, at one point they had more dates.
Yeah. Well,
They would do.
Halloween's a thing now. I mean,
Well, yeah, but the thing is, they used the Christmas battle plan to grow it into a thing.
yeah.
You know, in fact, that was the most interesting part of the seasonal decoration team. They got to the point where they could do this amazing job with the park for the holidays, and they then came at them and said, well, could you do the same thing for Halloween? And, had to invent a whole decoration program and likewise a battle plan to change out the park in, just 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, so again, you're looking at both coasts looking for ways to create artificial reasons for people to drive people to the parks for the holidays. So, on the heels of, Country Bear Christmas, they begin looking for other attractions they can do this to. And so in 97, we end up with Small World Holiday for Disneyland.
Really? It's that recent. It's only
yeah,
15 years. Oh, really? I thought it dated back a lot longer than that.
No, and in fact, it was the success of that one that led to Haunted Mansion Holiday coming out in 2001. And then it got weird because that one was so hugely successful that they began like, well, could we do a holiday overlay of pirates? It's like, no, you can't do that. And in fact, just this year, after more than a decade of going back and forth about can we do something for the Jungle Cruise, we ended up with Jingle Cruise.
Have you been on that?
Yeah, and look.
That's exactly my opinion of it.
Look, I mean, no disrespect to the skippers who do a yeoman's job of putting over the new script and doing everything possible to make that fun. But when you come through that queue that has all of these fun little holiday touches, and you're listening to "I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas," and you look at the prepped boats and like you're ready, and you've seen the poster coming in of the elephants wearing and hippos wearing Santa hats. You're ready, and you get on the boat and it's the same show. It's the same visuals.
That's the thing that bothered me about it. So I knew something was up. Mm-hmm. When there was a line because lots of people are doing it. We get in the boat and we can see the other boat sort of turning to the left to start the ride, and we noticed that only the half of the boat that faces the guests was decorated. So we knew, okay, something they didn't completely fill out this idea.
Just that half?
Just the half of the boat. So if you look at like the name on the top of the boats, for example, there's only decorations on the side that faces the guests.
I have been told by folks who work in the parks that. In fact, I did a piece about sort of Bungle in the Jungle about that this sort of it's a half measure.
It is.
And they said going forward, they would try to do this. The problem is that, in fact, this is where we get into the whole Walt Disney World Disneyland thing because, face it, Haunted Mansion Holiday has been around since 2001. You've had Small World Holiday since '97. Mm-hmm. Why aren't these coming east? And whenever anybody presses the point on it, the people in ops say, look, Disneyland, because it's the world's most famous regional theme park.
Yeah.
And, its guests come, twice a year, typically, and are coming only from 100 miles away. They're much more forgiving when they say come to the park and there's a fence around the Haunted Mansion, saying, I'm sorry, we're closed for the 3 weeks it takes to set this up. And what's funny is that the teardown only takes like 3 or 4 days. In fact, I know Seth Kabursky would approve of this because he's the guy who went on Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey with a high-powered flashlight, so he could. Did Seth ever tell you about the Dementors that get cut out of that attraction?
I think I've heard this. No, no. I thought I heard it, but no.
Okay, so you're in this. Okay, we're just quick side trip to Universal here, folks. If you're on Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, and where you're in the Chamber of Secrets and you're being attacked by Dementors, there's a moment in that where Harry says, "Leave my friends alone," and you're looking at sort of mist screens above you. Um, it's just sort of like that's kind of a lame thing in this ride. Well, behind the mist screens are an animatronic, a group of figures on a Kuka arm that were supposed to sort of swoop down at you, and it was literally it's a mass of like 21 Dementors, and
Really?
evidently, oh yeah, and evidently it was one of these things where the people who rode the ride in its original form said it was a scary moment because you look up and your bench is moving up toward them and the arm is hammering them down at you, and then Harry says, leave my friends alone, waves his wand, and the Dementors are blown away. But it was so scary, and also there was a concern that Kuka arm going up, Kuka arm coming down, this could be bad.
Kuka sandwich.
There we go. So they actually shut off the effect, and Seth, God love him, heard about this, and so what does he do? They put up the mist curtain to hide this effect. Seth brings a high-powered flashlight with him on the ride. He wants to prove
That's not a safety issue. Sure.
No.
Sure.
So it gets that moment of the ride, turns it through the mist curtain. Sure enough, here is this knot of Dementors that's sort of hanging from the ceiling that's no longer in the ride.
Wow.
So sorry, folks. Again, you had a scarier show, but Universal just wasn't in the mood to sell the Harry Potter adult diaper. So it just sort of maybe we shouldn't put that in the show.
No,
anyway,
all right, so we're talking about the guests who want the original version of the attraction. So because that's what we've heard at Walt Disney World for the longest time. People save up for 2 years. If they come in October, they want to see the original version of Country Bears or Haunted Mansion in Walt Disney World because they come from all over the world. Whereas in Disneyland, it's a regional theme park.
No, absolutely. But the problem is now that they've done Jingle Cruise on both coasts, this becomes kind of a moot point. It's like, no, wait a minute, you were willing to do that, but the argument, in fact, that was the pushback I got from Walt Disney World about, well, if that's the version that people want, they want with the Santa hats and that sort of thing, I think we're going to have to opt out because we can't shut down this attraction. We need to have that much more capacity. So I don't honestly know what's going to happen. It could be one of these situations where for Christmas time at Disneyland, they get the amazing show, and we revert to we did Jingle Cruise for the 1 year and got bad press, so we don't do this.
We're constantly adjusting our mix of attractions based on guest satisfaction. Yeah.
There you go. Oh, by the way, just to double back on I brought up the high-powered flashlight for a reason, because if you actually ride the Haunted Mansion during the off-season when they're not doing the holiday show, all of the props for Haunted Mansion Holiday are kept in the building. In fact, one of these things where if you're going through the track, right along the attraction, and have a flashlight find it up the ceiling, there are these giant bags hanging down from the ceiling of all the props for Haunted Mansion Holiday.
Oh, that's where they store
the lighter ones. So
that's hysterical.
They don't keep the anvils up there. But
it could possibly go wrong.
Anyway, now getting back to Disneyland, I have to tell a story. This is the year before DCA opens, and Disneyland's kind of staring down the pipe with the reality of, again, you have so many people who come from the local area, and they know DCA is going to be opening in January. So it's like, why should I spend my money to go to Disneyland for Christmas of 2000?
Yeah, when I can wait a month, yeah.
Yeah, and so Cynthia Harris was sort of staring down the barrel of this. I mean, they were, again, the staff at that resort is exhausted because they've been in temporary parking for 3+ years at this point, and guests, in order to get to the park, have been making their way through plywood mazes to get through all of the temporary stuff. And
Sure.
it's like we need something amazing. We need something to really get people here. So, and in a meeting, one of the guys said, well, we could make it snow. And it's like, how? Well, little foam soap stuff. And it's like, but you'd have to have dozens upon dozens of the machine. They have to go off simultaneously. And can we do that? And it's like, I don't know. And so here's Cynthia. It's an October night. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. They've got everybody standing on Main Street while people are running along the rooftops of Main Street, USA, and nobody knows if it's going to work. But she just described this moment where they're about to throw in the towel when finally it happens. The machines kick on and they're standing there, and the snow begins to flutter down, and it's like. And she was like, "Oh my God, it's exactly what we wanted it to be. It's this magical holiday feel." And the weird thing is that they got it running in just after Thanksgiving at Disneyland, and they said it was, for lack of it was in the early days of social media, but they watched the attendance at the park grow every day because people just went out and said, "Oh my God, I was at Disneyland and it snowed."
They have snow.
And the Southern Californians, during a time when nobody should have come out to the park, they dealt with record crowds, and that then led to just the whole notion of, well, what else could we do? And then you ended up with the Sleeping Beauty castle covered with the artificial
Ice,
the light show,
yeah.
which in turn the idea got duplicated and brought to Florida.
Yep.
Now we jump ahead to 2001. DCA's finally opened, and this is the kind of the irony of the situation. One of the reasons Haunted Mansion Holiday was put in, and this was a project that was well underway before DCA opened, but it was fast-tracked because the worry was that, wow, when we open DCA, it's going to be such a hit, we're going to suck all the attendance out of Disneyland, and we better give them something new. Yep. And the little realizing DCA wasn't going to have that problem in its original form. So now they're looking at ridiculously low crowds, and they realize, wow, we need something to bring people into our park. And so they invented, on a very short time schedule and a very tiny budget, Luminaria, the first lagoon show for that theme park.
I'm not familiar with it. Luminaria.
Only ran one season, and it actually, it in a weird sort of way, it predated a lot of the effects that are so prevalent in World of Color, specifically Winter Dreams. They did this amazing thing where it was sort of candles rose up out of the water. And the other thing they did that was really kind of charming is that they had this sort of I think that the name they used to do, in-house, it was known as the candy dish, this giant faux island out that they put out there. But these video screens would pop up out of the water, and they would, guests earlier in the day had been invited into that sort of weird pseudo San Francisco area, and could create their own Christmas cards, and they'd then be scanned in, and those were part of the show. And it was really quite effective. People would wait for hours just to see their Christmas card, which hung on. The only problem was it was a relatively heavy fireworks-based show, and that bowl shape would hold the smoke. So by the end of the show, it was kind of like Christmas in Beirut. So I think I see festive things, or possibly I'm getting emphysema. I don't know. That ran the one season, but again, interestingly enough, that they knew they could use that space for shows. The Luminaria had been the proof of concept, but it took them 9 years to circle back on World of Color.
Wow.
World of Color did do little holiday add-ons, the prep and landing stuff that was done for 2000, 2011. It was only this year that they finally went ahead with Winter Dreams. And have you managed to see that yet? Have you gotten out west to see that yet?
No, not yet.
Okay,
Guy may have seen it. Yeah.
okay, because it's a clever show. I mean, it's a long show. I mean,
Is it?
yeah, it's 25 minutes, and you kind of feel
Wow.
all 25 of them, you know. But
Wow.
they lucked out in a weird sort of way because Steve Davison put it together, and Steve looked early at Frozen and thought that looks like a monster hit, and Let It Go is likewise. That Olaf character is amazing, and he just took whole chunks of that. I mean, they basically perform all of Let It Go, and
Wow.
likewise Olaf's In Summer song in the show, and it's a hit right out of the box.
Oh, good call. Good call by him.
Yeah, well, no, Steve's a smart guy, but the interesting thing is that while he was putting this together for DCA, he was doing a version of this same show that would be then shown on the castle at I keep dating myself by calling it Euro Disneyland Paris. Um, so it just it's interesting to watch now how it is using this projection technology. That
Yeah.
this seems to be, the next big thing. And it, I mean, for example, again, it's Small World in California. They do a whole, sort of a gingerbread holiday celebration that's projected onto Small World, several times a night out there.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's a pretty decent show. I think I actually like that better than what's the new one after Magic Memories in You? The Celebrate the Magic.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I did want to bring up one issue. There's been um, looping back to Walt Disney World this year. There's been the candlelight that's going on at the Epcot. There's been some interesting comments online about how there have been, and people have gone, people now in the Orlando area go year after year after year. This
Yep.
is, part of their holiday routine.
Yep.
They've noticed that some of the material that deals with the story of Christ has been kind of clipped out, sort of foreshortened in the show to give a more secular take.
Of
And
Christmas.
of Christmas.
All right.
And what's kind of interesting is that it wasn't really all that long ago when you could go to the Walt Disney World Shopping Village, where one of the highlights of the holiday season was they did a living nativity. Mind you, it was the world's slowest living nativity.
Sure. Wow.
Well, no, I mean, just you that whole central area where they give the concert, they built a manger.
Really? That was
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, and they did that starting in the mid '70s, right up till the mid '90s or thereabouts. In fact, it was kind of when World of Disney Store opened that they finally said, the crowd levels are so big, and we're a
Yeah.
little concerned about bringing live animals in here. But yeah, they would, it was the living nativity. They do one Christmas Carol and like bring in a sheep, and then do another Christmas Carol and here comes the camel, and
Wow, live animals. That's an awesome idea.
it was, and in fact, I think there is some stuff on YouTube of this presentation. But again, I don't know if there was a video camera that had cassette that was long enough to tape this whole show. I just remember,
Yeah, if they're doing one animal per song,
yeah,
and then each wise man probably gets their own introductory march, and yeah.
the ending tableau was beautiful. I mean, it was wonderful. It was the Christmas card shot. It just took you 2 weeks to get there. It was Three Kings Day by the time the show was over. So
Greek Orthodox Christmas. So what's Disney World? What's the Disney company looking forward to for Christmas? What are the plans that we know now that they've got the Very Merry Christmas parties. We know that they've got overlays. What if anything is going to be different 5 years from now?
Well, getting back to the wonderful magic bands, the whole notion of wouldn't it be amazing to have an encounter with Santa at the parks where, that wonderful, what is it, Miracle on 34th Street moment where Santa Santa nails every child, that's the wrong term, but knows every child in line and can
Yeah.
identify them, and that notion. I mean, what if you had Super Santa? Santa who knew, oh, how is ballet class going? And
What does he? What if he knows whether you've really been naughty or nice? Could you imagine?
well, that's
Can you
maybe
imagine
this.
if a parent puts something into my Disney experience like, Billy never washes his clothes, or Billy never cleans up his room, and then Santa starts staying there, the kid will be like, I don't care what
Well,
anyone else says. I believe, man. He knows.
well,
You
the
weren't
cool thing.
there, man. You weren't there. He
Yeah,
knows.
well, the cool thing about that is if they do that, they should actually set up the Santa meet and greet for Germany, because then they could bring out Krampus. You know, I mean, the horned demon of Christmas who beats bad children with switches. So
Did you
it's
ever hear
like,
the David Sedaris story about Christmas? Santa and
oh,
the
what?
6 to 8 Black Men.
Yep,
So apparently one of the go look it up. It's probably on
mm,
YouTube. David
yep.
Sedaris and the 6 to 8 Black Men. Anyway, so David Sedaris goes to different countries, and in each country he asks them what their Christmas tradition is. And apparently in the Netherlands, is it? The
Hmm.
one of the traditions is if you've been bad, you don't get coal in your stocking, but Santa and the elves come and beat you up.
There you go.
Christmas is a time for reflecting on cultural differences.
I,
Anyway,
I,
so
but no, you could. But yeah, that's what they're looking at.
magic bands.
And that coupled
Yeah, I
with
can
now
see.
that you have this monstrous hit movie Frozen, that is obviously ice, winter, snow. They're already that's really sort of filtering out. They're already looking at 2014, 2015. How does
Hmm.
that fit into our holiday plans? In fact, that's those of you who love the Maelstrom,
Oh,
might
that's right.
want to
Yeah,
go
go
visit it.
right now.
Yeah, because Disney's not going to make the mistake they made with the Little Mermaid again. They're not going to wait 20 years to do a ride.
Yeah.
This time around, Frozen will have an attraction, I'm told, within 18 months. So,
Oh, it'll
and
be yeah,
you
Maelstrom
know,
will be it. Yeah.
yeah, and then supposedly there's something larger scale in the works for Disneyland, but that's a project that's behind the Marvel and the Star Wars stuff. So,
So a few years for that.
we'll see.
Huh, interesting.
Uh,
Something to
but
look
yeah,
forward
I
to.
mean, but again, just when you understand that Disneyland expanded its Christmas, its holiday programs, just the way we did, in modern day America, that's going to continue. Whatever we're doing in the outside world, Disney will somehow filter in. Um,
Huh.
and and I think the funniest part of this is that if you remember, there was, I think, 81 where they did Mickey's Christmas Carol, and then I think it was 92, 93 they did Muppet Christmas Carol, and then just 2 years ago they did the Jim Carrey, Robert Zemeckis motion capture Christmas Carol. Evidently, the guys who do Phineas and Ferb, it's
Yes, Phineas and
you know
Ferb Christmas Carol.
so, but evidently it's about it's about Dr. Doofenshmirtz trying to reform. So just tuck that one away, folks. We may see another version coming someday soon.
That would be
So
great. Oh,
so
cool. Well, Jim, thanks for wrapping up our Christmas story just in time for the holiday itself.
again, glad to do it. And again, folks, I hope everyone just enjoys the season.
Thanks again, Jim. All right, folks, you've been listening to the Unofficial Guide Disney Disc podcast with Jim Hill. For Jim, this is Len. Thanks very much for listening. Please rate us on iTunes and leave us comments to let us know what you'd like to hear next. Have a happy holiday season, and we will see you on the next show.
Bye now.